Hello, welcome to the 11th episode of the strategy game Warring Factions. The first thing I'm doing is checking up on Thunderdome, and as I said in the end of the last episode, what eventually happens is that they become highly educated in criminal activities. It's pretty much how a colony naturally settles when there's no, all you're doing is all that's happened is that any type of government that exists has just made life difficult for them, and that's the outcome. The population growth drops quite a bit, but it's still the same as it was when it had 250,000 people, mind you. And it decreases a lot more. It would be like 1,000, but because of the 6 new colonies, it spreads the growth out across them all to stop people from gaming the system too much, I think. So now I'm just going to go and pre-set all the orders for my colonizers so that I can get everything done in one day in the game, and then I just open them up and select the planet with a colonization mission, but I don't launch them and then go through and set them all up. And this is a handy trick if you're doing anti-intelligence wars with corvettes, to send out groups in sporadic patterns, and it pretty much makes it cover so much ground, and it's very hard to distinguish distances and ranges. It effectively intimidates them from continually putting out surveyors, things like that. If you can scatter the air full, and you can set up orders to send them out by queuing orders with the tabs. Like, imagine 1,000 individual corvettes fly out suddenly around the whole solar system. It's quite intimidating. Anyway, like, who's got time to deal with them? That's what they think. So they're like, this won't bother. And then they just buckle down for the invasion. That's what you want them to do if you're attacking. Now I've just set up the new colonies after the ticks passed. You can see that I used a single shelter tech corvette with only 100 citizens, and the way you designate what's happening is by these settings in the drop down menu at the top under your name. And this is a setting I've used before for starting up new tech colonies. You still need at least 1% tax, because you need to somewhat break even, otherwise it's a bad long-term strategy. Basically, these are planets of entirely made of entrepreneurial enterprises up until a certain point. The way that you send your fleet down that has all the resources and extra colonists is by going to, this is the simplest way if you're new to it, is to go to view colonies and find your colonies, but the alternative way is to find it in local colonies, but under the drop down menu for the fleet. But that won't always be the same if there's multiple people with the same colony name. You don't want to accidentally give someone all of your resources and population that you can't get back if they are not cooperative, because you can automatically transport things like that to people's colonies. There is a trick. If you want to give somebody actual colonists, you need to add at least one resource of any type to it, and then send it to their colony as a transport mission. And that's how you give people things. You can't directly swap them over because you don't own the colony. Now I'm just checking out all these worlds. It's a lot easier to look at them now because I've got colonies on them all, which I think is a good setup with the, instead of spamming information in that other menu that come up with all the solar system. So it was pretty rough on your memory if you're using your phone to suddenly get cascaded with data about worlds when you're looking for info about one of them, because there's always many ways to get to the same menu. So now what I'm going to do with Thunderdome is extract population from it, but not excessively. I'll show you how to do it like in a reasonable way, so you're not trying to scam the system, which doesn't actually pay off. I've found out, like, it's like that efficiency thing. Like, you're putting a lot more work in for a small gain, because it can all be lost in one bad move in a battle. So for the extra population, unless you do an excessive amount of exploiting and then it's actually cheating. I've tried it and I know it works, so that's why I'm telling you. Right, and of course I've called it the harvester, and just like that, Thunderdome is vacant again. And I would suggest to do this once every day you log on. After that, the population, I think, got a growth. Its growth went up to 400, and that will drop off back to under 100. But it's still far better than the 200 that it would have been getting with 250,000 population on the one place. Because as the other colonies get more stabilised, their growth will increase as well. But right now, all the growth's going into the land. See, when you take everyone away, there's no crime and sick people. Everyone who escaped the ships is unemployed and not educated. So you can translate all the data into a story for a role playing, which is kind of a fun part of this game I used to get into. Because I never used to like reading fiction books until one day, because I was quite a loner at school. The librarian's like, I've never seen you get one fiction book out, and she gave me Ender's Game to read. So if that explains anything about my interest in space games. And I was very interested in that book. It's like Wars Against Bugs. I think it sounds like, you know, this place, but like Hollywood version, where everything's extreme, just to sit the saturation's turned up. It's funny, but anyway, the density on these you can see is nothing special. I think that's alright. But what you want to do is let those colonists, 100, settle for one whole day, so that it just works properly. If you put the colonists like this on straight away on the same turn you drop them, I found it can be less effective. And you're even better off to stagger out dropping them to maintain a density of about 500. But the payoff again is like, I will end up with 1,000, to 10,000 more people, because less people die. But I have a special advantage because I have the technology here. I can just put down mega awesome institutions that curb all of the crime and sickness. So this is why I put this into the intermediate category for, like, it's not only is it expanding into the solar system, but it's doing it with how maybe a new player would, because it would take a long time to figure all this out on your own. I'm saying it would take about 2 years for a person to go from not knowing this game to being capable of doing everything in it, because and then you just get better at doing everything after that. No, that's because you need to fail heaps. It's all about beasting. Anyway, now I'm going through every single colony and doing the same job so that I don't miss anything, rather than going to one colony and trying to do all the little jobs that I've got to think about because of how I'm thinking today. Another day I might have done it differently, but I just felt comfortable doing it like that because I didn't want to miss anything. I'm trying to keep all the colonies the exact same, so when I send new resource transports out, they've all got the same population and they've all got the same resources, and so it's just real easy to manage rather than scattering them out like a shotgun into the solar systems, because then it's a nightmare to actually do any logistics, and it takes ages. So you're better off to learn how to get everything working in one solar system first. And on that note, never colonize a solar system that only has one planet. I made that mistake in a game when it was really important not to. But it didn't matter in the end, but it's because we never got around to moving off of it. Because everyone kind of was like, oh, this is like too difficult, this game. And it was pretty difficult. So a few rounds ago, when our galaxy was called Arcadia, and the Yellows tried naming our homeworld, and I got real pissed off about it because I didn't want to fucking look at that name the whole game. I'm like, too much griefing, and I'm like, I've got 100 naming credits, and I'm like, I'll name every single planet and system around their entire homeworld, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like this because my anger gets pretty intense. This is why I do things like this, to chill out. So like, I like studying anger management in a way because, that's part of being in a civilization that has technology. So if you've got the opportunity to destroy things on a whim if you really want to. So you've got to have self-control to stay alive in them. Unlike in a more barbaric lifestyle, the less self-control you have, the better off you are. I'm interested in people who transition between those lifestyles, because how much of the old world they can, but it's always a dilution, but you don't know, it's like a chemical mix of people's ideologies. This is why this game is good for me as well, because everyone here is interested in one thing, which is logistics, basically. That's what it is. And not having to be accountable for the mistakes that you make in it, because that's why I wouldn't do this in real life. Now, looking at these after another tick, you can see, which is what you call a day. The mauled people. So now I'm going through and putting mauls in, which is what this whole exercise is about. And I counted to put 17 in. And that will, I've got enough resources to maul up to 2 million. You always want to put a few more mauls in than people you have, if you haven't encountered that idea before. So you don't have to do it every day, because the extra cost of the credits isn't worth that extra effort to pay attention to that detail, if you know what I mean. It's a balancing act of giving a damn. It's the less work you put to maintaining your civilization, the more fun the game is. So, yeah. I found otherwise it just gets over the top. Like, Shinzon's really good with making analytical graphs, but I'm like, if I'd paid that much attention to it, it would drive me crazy. It's just like, he's just put his time and effort into it. I'm sure I could come up with something equally complex in my way, But like I did that once with a pie chart or some graph, and they're like, they're not supposed to make them more complicated. Like, what do you call them? A flow chart. Yeah, I made a flow chart, and like it just turned into this disaster. I might put it up on one of the videos. That to try and follow it along. And anyway, the mall. So of all that stuff I was talking about, the mall, I could have just gone to the wiki because it's all in there. Some information's good, some information's bad. Most of it's been updated, and kind of I did a bit of it, bit more adding in those bars, things like that. I didn't really change the information. I just tried to separate out, like do some font work, kind of like what Dunscat does, but this is way more tedious. And just to help out. So yeah, thanks very much. And I'll just chuck in one of my memes to finish it off, because war games and religion is what I've been talking about. Cheers.